It had turned into an unexpectedly pleasant evening. The air was still damp, but the last strains of light were soft and warm, the kind of pinkish-gray color that in fashion papers they called ashes of roses. The street was bustling with people like her, spilling out of shops and offices, making their way home. She joined the tide, but before she had gone very far, she stopped abruptly, realizing that she had forgotten to bring home Billy's jacket. She turned back at once. There was nothing for it but to return to the shop. She couldn't risk leaving it there for Mr. Cooper, or Mrs. Milton, or worse, Edith, to discover tomorrow morning. Wishing her feet didn't hurt quite so much, she made herself hurry back down the street in the direction of Sinclair's. If she were quick, she would easily get back before the long process of locking up for the night was completed. The poor young man had vanished from the step now, probably off somewhere buying buns with her shilling, she thought grudgingly. The store was shrouded in darkness, with only a few lights gleaming from the very top of the building, where Mr. Sinclair had his own luxurious private apartments. The staff entrance was locked, but as she had hoped, the door that led into the shop from the stable yard was still open. Hoping to slip in and out without being noticed by anyone, Sophie made her way back inside. It was strange being in the store after hours. The ground floor was completely silent and still, and yet there seemed to be a faint humming sound in the air. The shapes of the counters and chairs looked unearthly in the dark, and little bits of light from the street outside caught and shimmered in the looking-glasses, casting piercing, silvery gleams through the shadows. For a moment or two she hesitated, but then she roused herself to hurry forward towards the back staircase the staff used. She wished she had used one of the main staircases instead when she saw how dark it was. But she hastened onward anyway, trying not to jump at every creak or rustle. It was a relief when she reached the millinery department. Rummaging through the hat boxes, she at last found the one containing the jacket, took it out, and bundled it up quickly in a bit of brown paper. On her way back, she took the main stairs, running down 2 steps at a time. The staircase brought her down into the entrance hall, and here she stopped short. Last time she had been here, the doors to the great exhibition hall had been closed. Now they stood wide open. She could see a great shadowy room beyond, and down each side of the room was a row of glass cases gleaming in the shadows. In spite of herself, she tiptoed a little way through the doors to peer inside. Approaching the first case, she caught her breath in astonishment. An array of exquisitely beautiful objects was laid out on a white velvet cushion, neatly labeled. Forgetting all about wanting to hurry home, she gazed at a sparkling diamond tiara, then a rich purple gemstone the size of a hen's egg, and then at a tiny, ornate golden bird, beautifully enameled and glittering all over with gold and precious stones. "The Clockwork Sparrow," she read. It was so small, so richly jeweled, so perfect. She bent to look at it more closely, and for a moment in the dim light, it seemed almost as if it were looking back at her. Its jewel eye glinted, as if it were winking. A hand fell heavily on her shoulder, as sudden as a thunderclap. She started up and gave a little yelp of terror, but fell silent when she saw Mr. Cooper's face looming out of the dark. "Miss Taylor, what are you doing here?" he demanded, frowning sharply. "I beg your pardon, sir, but I left something behind and I wanted to run up and get it before everything was shut up for the night," she said quickly, pink flooding her cheeks. She clutched her parcel close to her, hoping he wouldn't ask what was inside it. "I thought it would be best not to trouble anyone." "Get on home," said Cooper sternly. "Quick, quick, be off with you." "Yes, sir," said Sophie. She fled in relief through the darkened store and then out into the stable yard. A new day was breaking over London. It was Tuesday morning and chimneys were puffing out smoke again. Boats were surging up and down the river, and the church bells were sounding out the start of another day. Sophie walked along the embankment, the air rushing cold and clear against her face. She clutched her hat as the wind whirled against her skirts and set her ribbons streaming out behind her. Above her, birds dipped and soared, and below, the river sparkled, transformed by the clear morning light to glitter as brilliantly as any of the jewels she had seen in the exhibition hall last night. She had awoken early, surprised to find a prickle of excitement in the pit of her stomach before she remembered that today was the day that Sinclair's would open its doors for the first time. She decided to walk to the store along the river and through the park, where already a couple of nursemaids were taking out babies for the morning air in enormous black perambulators, and a footman accompanied an absurd little lapdog on its pre-breakfast trot. "Good morning, miss," the footman said, doffing his hat politely. "Good morning," Sophie replied and walked on. The park smelled sweet with rain, the fountains were playing, and the flower beds were full of wind-blown crocuses and daffodils. She was wearing her spring hat and her favorite blouse with the mother-of-pearl buttons, and she was almost looking forward to the day ahead of her, or at least to seeing Lil and Billy. The thought gave her a sudden tingle of cheerfulness. Not so long ago she had thought she would never be able to feel cheerful again. Lost in her thoughts, she didn't notice the newsboys or hear the headlines they were calling, but simply drifted onward, carried by the morning's current towards Sinclair's. "Break-in at Sinclair's! Robbery at London's new department store, due to open this morning. Priceless jewels stolen. Read all about it. Read all about it."
"I say, what a terrific lot of people!" exclaimed Lil as she came galloping towards the staff entrance, rather late to prepare for the first dress parade. She knew, but not in the least concerned about it. "Isn't it marvelous?" A few of the staff were standing in a solemn, whispering huddle on the steps. "You haven't heard then? You'll never believe it!" The shock of the robbery had broken up all the usual store hierarchies, so it was a strange group that stood mixed up together on the steps. A delivery driver, a salesgirl, one or two porters, a kitchen maid. Whatever is the world coming to? "It's a disgrace, that's what it is." "What is?" demanded Lil, completely forgetting that she was supposed to be getting ready for the dress show. "Whatever has happened? Do tell me." Billy detached himself from the circle and came over to her. "Didn't you hear? There was a big robbery here at the shop last night. Thieves broke in and most of the stuff in the exhibition has been taken." "Golly!" exclaimed Lil, her eyes round with surprise. Billy gave her a very solemn look. "And the robbers, they shot Bert. You know, Bert Jones from Ladies' Fashions? He's been taken to the hospital. They aren't sure if he'll pull through." Lil's mouth dropped open in amazement. "It's true! Right over there, in the yard. It happened. Edith's already been taken home in hysterics. But whatever was Bert doing here at night? And what about the night watchman?" "The night watchman's all right. Just a bump to the head. They knocked him out. Poor fellow didn't even get a look at them." "Have they caught who did it?" Billy shook his head. "There's a policeman here now. Scotland Yard," he added in awestruck tones. "He's upstairs with Cooper." "Golly!" said Lil again, shaking her head in astonishment. "But the store's open just as planned. I say, where's everyone else? Where's Sophie?" Billy looked even more troubled. "That's the worst of it," he said, lowering his voice. "She's upstairs, with the policeman, too."